Now, this week, we've seen the King travel up to Scotland alongside Queen Camilla, which, of course, he's done many times before. However, this was the first time of him doing it since the coronation in May, making this visit one of great historical significance. The occasion was therefore marked on Wednesday with a special celebration called a National Service of Thanksgiving and Dedication. And it was a bit like a Scottish coronation, featuring plenty of pomp and ceremony and jewels that we've come to expect from such a moment. In fact, it seemed like quite a grand affair in its own way. So, Gareth, what exactly does this service represent? Is it a mini Scottish coronation?
Yes, you can call it any number of variations, but it is, to all intents and purposes, a coronation. There hasn't been one of a separate King of Scots or Queen of Scots since the 17th century.
Wow.
But this regalia that they're using is the oldest set of crown jewels in the British Isles because...
Stone of Destiny, was that there?
It was there, it was. Very good. And also...
The most ancient of all.
It is the most ancient of all of them. Its origin story is that it was alleged, when it first appeared in the Middle Ages, centuries ago, the Stone of Destiny was allegedly the stone on which the biblical figure Jacob dreamt his heavenly vision. It's now generally not considered that it is. It's no longer considered a biblical artifact, but it is so important to Scotland's sense of identity that it's acquired influence and sort of totemic emotional importance beyond what it actually is.
I mean, Matt, when you were there, did it have the same sense of occasion and emotion as the coronation?
It was actually a welcome relief from the coronation. If you see Charles at the coronation, he looked stressed, he looked a bit glum, he looked like the weight of the world was on his shoulders that he had to perform. Here, they were relaxed, they were happy, he was smiling. The music was incredible. I don't know if you got the chance to listen to it, but he had a role in, I think, 5 newly commissioned songs throughout the ceremony.
He carried on certain things from the coronation, including using non-English languages off the Union. The song, one of the new hymns commissioned is in Doric, which is the dialect in the far northeast of Scotland, where his grandmother kept the Castle of May, which he inherited, and apparently the Queen Mother and the Queen could both speak Doric.
He's devilish in his detail, isn't he? But he was also accompanied by the Duke and Duchess of Rothesay. How do we better know them?
They would be Kate and William or Prince and Princess of Wales down here, but of course up there. And you can see that sense of...
So this is their Scottish title, the Duke and Duchess of Rothesay.
Exactly, exactly that. And we've got Kate here in that kind of Scottish blue from the Scottish flag. She always dresses so well, doesn't she? And this is a sense of joy, I think, that Matt was talking about. There was definitely moments of kind of, kids sniggering in the pews, like you used to do at church when you were a kid.
No children there this time. They were the only family members representing, right?
Absolutely, it was slimmed down, I think, but there was more of a sense, there was a great sense of kind of old and new coming together in terms of tradition, but in a modern setting. So the Queen was criticised in 1953 when she had her sort of Scottish, presented with the honours of Scotland, because she turned up in a sort of hat with carrying a handbag, whereas there was more of a sense of maybe respect, I don't know, to the tradition here with, the robes that you can see with the King and Queen and the Duke of Rothesay, as we know him, north of the border, and the Stone of Destiny as well. So that was different. In this ceremony for the King, the Stone of Destiny was within the cathedral, which it wasn't actually for the Queen's, the same ceremony that happened in Scotland for the Queen in 1953. Yes, so we're actually, in some ways, Charles is bringing back that kind of the significance of the historical, the Scottish element, even more so. And he's very respectful of that, I think, because, of course, since 1953, the Union's in a different place. We've had talks about referendums, and even in his Dumfries house, the Ayrshire mansion that he's saved for the nation, he's got in the allotment at the back, he's done it in the Union flag.
You're watching the Royal Beat Collection. We'll be back right after this short break. Explore our shows on True Royalty TV, the only on-demand channel devoted to the best documentaries about royalty. They left the royal family for a life in California. Chart the highs and lows of their departure in Harry and Meghan, The Rise and Fall. Uncover how Princess Catherine was mentored by the late Queen in Kate and the Queen, A Special Relationship. What will the future hold for the Wales' eldest son when he ascends the throne? Find out in Prince George, A King for the Future. You can get this and more only on True Royalty, the home of Royal TV.
The royals are on their holidays at the moment. The Queen is at Balmoral, where over the coming week she'll be hosting members of her own family, welcoming them to her vast, beautiful private estate in the Scottish Highlands with all of the, well, privacy that it affords. How long will the Queen traditionally be at Balmoral, Richard?
Well, she's normally there for 6 weeks, although in the past it has been as long as 10 weeks, up until mid-October. But normally these days, as she's got older, she tends to spend 6 weeks there.
So, I mean, this is rare, isn't it? It's the only time in her otherwise very busy calendar, certainly as a working royal, that she ever got to stop for that period of time, Duncan.
Yes, I mean, the Queen is or the royals really are creatures of habit in many ways, and you'll almost be able to set your calendar by when the Queen will be at Balmoral, and obviously at Sandringham at Christmas and Windsor at Easter. But it really is the Balmoral estate where I think the Queen has recharged her batteries every year. But of course, when we still had the Royal Yacht Britannia, I think there was always part of the Scottish trip where they would tour the Western Isles on board, and that was the Queen's passion. But when that was removed many years ago, Balmoral became the summer destination for Her Majesty.
Well, Princess Eugenie says of Balmoral, it is the most beautiful place on earth. I think Granny is the most happy there. She really loves the Highlands. And in fact, she wrote to her mother many, many years ago saying, it's heaven up here. Now, Ingrid, you know a lot about this place. You wrote in your book about Philip that it was at Balmoral that Philip actually proposed to the Queen in 1946.
It certainly was, and I wish we knew more detail. It has never been revealed how he proposed to her.
Has it not?
We don't know for sure, and we'd love to know, but I don't think we ever will.
Let's talk about the history of the estate and what it meant to other members of the royal family. The Queen's grandfather, King George V, said, I'm never so happy as when I'm fishing the pools of the Dee, which is the river that runs through the estate. And he passed this on to his son, the Queen's father, Bertie, didn't he?
He certainly did. Well, they were all completely obsessed with sport and shooting. And of course, at Balmoral, you've got grouse shooting and stalking, which is they crawl up the hills and shoot stags, cull stags, because there are so many deer there. They need to be culled, and it's quite a scientific process. So that is the main thrust, and then of course there's fishing, and they all love fishing. Queen Mother loved fishing, Prince Philip, the Queen, and obviously it's been passed on to William and Harry, and presumably now Prince George.
Yeah, I mean, as children, Elizabeth recalls the complete freedom of Balmoral. But actually, it was Queen Victoria who bought the estate back in 1852 for private family holidays. And as always, she had a husband that was always on hand with a renovation plan, didn't she, Richard? And in he came and pimped the place up.
Well, he certainly did more than pimping it up, I think. Albert always had some very grand schemes for improving the living arrangements of the royal family. Yes, he was a visionary in many ways.
But first of all, they pulled it down, didn't they?
They did. They pretty much knocked down what existed there.
Yeah, it's largely a Victorian building.
It is.
Now,
But apparently it was a little bit small. One guest commented that when the party played billiards every evening after the Queen, Victoria and her mother, they would sit down with them. They were seated very nearby. They constantly had to get up and move out of the way when the kids were playing billiards. So it was really Albert who kind of took the rein on this one and said, right, OK, let's build something much, much bigger. And boy, did he.
one of the biggest changes that's happened on the Balmoral estate over the years, post-Diana, I think at the time of Diana, I think they must have gone round, worked out every photograph that was taken and just planted as many trees as they can.
Do you remember when there was a story about Diana was fishing on the River Dee with Prince Charles, or she was standing there, he was fishing, and she caught the glimpse of a lens, I think it was probably Arthur and James, and she looked in her makeup mirror behind her, and she saw the photographers there. So they were always really aware about being photographed, and that's why, of course, we have so many lovely photographs of them fishing and at Balmoral.